Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais with another episode of the Yakking Show. As always, we have very special guests for you, and today is no exception. We are going to be talking about how to deepen your spiritual connection. And please stay around to the end of the show because our guests always give a tip right at the end of the show, and we give you a little teaser on who's coming on next week. That's it from me. First, welcome Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you so much. And thank you also very much for tuning into our show. We so appreciate having you. And as Peter mentioned, we do have another special guest with us today. We are so privileged to welcome Catherine Corona to the show. Hello, Catherine. How are you?
Hi, Kathleen and Peter. It's great to see you, great to meet you, great to be here.
Well, Catherine holds a master's degree in theology and a doctorate in spiritual science. She also holds a counseling certificate in spiritual psychology. She's also an award-winning filmmaker for her documentary on the six major religions called The Great Mystery. I can't wait to delve into this topic with her. So, welcome again, Catherine. And our first question for you is it fair to say that humanity is in crisis because it seems that people have become so disconnected from themselves? And what I mean is that people appear to have lost their connection to the divine. Am I off base with
Mm.
that?
The great spiritual adventure that we all have a choice to consciously take
Mhm.
or not is to connect as deeply as we can with our spiritual nature and to connect with our greater spiritual nature, whatever word, the source, whatever word you want to call it. At least in our culture, it seems like in mainstream society, so much is geared to pull us away from that.
Mhm.
Now, I look at that as a great challenge to strengthen our connection with spirit. Because if you can connect with spirit with all the noise, with all the distractions, seductions, things that pull us out of there, especially with social media these days, and you can find the time and space for yourself
Mhm.
to connect, to align, to attune to your spiritual nature and the greater spiritual nature, then you're much stronger at it.
Mhm.
So it takes more discipline, I think. It's, at least in my life of decades and decades, it seems to, for me personally, I can speak just from my personal experience, that it takes me much more determination and discipline to take the time for myself to go inside and connect with my spiritual nature than it did before, because it just feels like so much is pulling at us. Whereas there was quieter time, at least when I was growing up.
Mhm.
There was quieter time outside in nature. We went out to play. There wasn't media constantly bombarding, you know, people of all ages now with its own. The entertainment is so well crafted, isn't it?
Yeah,
Now to take us outside of ourselves.
absolutely.
And it's brilliant at it. And people study that, how to take people and keep them on TikTok, keep them on
Mhm.
Instagram, keep them. I find myself like, wow, I just spent 10 minutes and wasn't even conscious of it, looking at funny videos, which sometimes I need a funny video, that's okay. But if it takes me out where I'm not conscious, I don't consider that okay for myself.
Right.
I don't want to be unconscious like that.
So
Mm.
Catherine, when you say to go inside, for those who are listening to this, what exactly does that mean?
That's such a good question. So that's different for every single person. But what it means to me is that there's a place inside of peace, of stillness, of alignment with something bigger than ourselves, bigger than each one of us, a place that feels transcendent, expansive, joyful. And to go inside in whatever method you use. So each person is going to have their own individual method Maybe it's a walk with your dog. Maybe it's sitting by a beach and just being still, just being quiet. And the biggest thing about going inside is listening to that still small voice that will speak to us in whatever way it does. It'll speak to us in a feeling, maybe a sound, maybe there's a voice, maybe there's not a voice, but it'll be an energy, a field of energy that is so beautiful and profound that you just want more of it. That's what going inward and connecting is. And it's going to be different for everyone. And everyone is going to have a different methods for that. There are the ancient methods, right? The tried and true ancient methods. Chanting, whatever faith tradition. It
Right.
could be in Christianity, Gregorian chanting, the Latin chanting, in Hinduism, the Sanskrit chanting, in Sufism, chanting the word Hu. It could be reading sacred scriptures. It can be watching your breath in some yoga practices. In Buddhism, it could be watching your mind until you can transcend your mind. So there are many ancient practices.
Right.
And then there's the ones that we hold dear to ourselves, that everybody is probably practicing now, although you may not have called it a spiritual practice.
Right.
But whatever connects you
Mm.
to stillness.
So, Catherine, you talked about discipline, and you need more discipline with all the chatter and noise and distractions to find what you're looking for. My observation, and I'm speaking from an advanced age, of course, and having had a similar background to you where we didn't have that social media disruptions, my observation is that many people under 50, maybe even over 50, just don't have that discipline. And they succumb to the distractions, which causes all sorts of other problems. And they just struggle to find that direction, discipline, commitment to look inwards. Am I on the right track there?
Real key. What motivates each person to want to have the discipline? And I know that word for some people is really a hot word, discipline. It sounds tormentive. It can, but maybe focus is another word.
Yeah, good one.
To have that focus and that resilience and vigilance for undertaking a practice, a method that connects you to something bigger, and listening to that thing that's bigger. And then coming awake and aware of what listening to that thing that's bigger, whatever word you may call it, what does it impart to you? And how do you feel? And how does it affect your life? And does it change your health? Does it change your relationships? That's all part of spiritual practices, is paying attention to the value you gain from that. So maybe coming at that to create a discipline or a focus, better word maybe, is to have a value inside of you that you find particularly motivating, and will direct you with some energy to hold to some kind of spiritual practice.
Right. Sorry, Kathleen, can I just pursue this one a little more? Catherine, I'm going to make another observation. A friend of mine with a daughter in her mid to late 40s who's married to a man of a similar age, they both had successful careers in IT, coding and building programs and that. And now that they've got to middle to late 40s, they've earned good money, they've been highly successful, they are feeling totally dissatisfied with their lives because they can't see any purpose in it. So my question to you is, do you think it was easier 50 years ago when most people could see tangible results of their work, right? Even office workers going back 50 years could see the report they've done, whereas now with a lot of people working on computers or in automated factories, it's very difficult to see one's own actual output or productivity. Do you think that's a factor that's divorcing us from being our true selves?
That's a really fascinating observation. everybody's going to be different.
Sure.
So I know that for me, I need a physical, tangible, something I can hold and feel and touch and taste to give me a sense of accomplishment. Now, some people that have grown up in the digital world, they can see an accomplishment with whatever work they're doing on the computer, and they feel completely. It amazes me. I don't know how they do it, but I live on a farm, so I have to balance the work I have to do. We all have to do these days on a computer with mucking and, getting bales of hay down, and I grow things. And I found a way to balance all this time on a screen that even to make a doctor's appointment, you have to do, or it's all on a screen now. But personally, I can't take it for very long. And I have to just get I just have to get my hands in the dirt in the spring, summer, and fall, get my hands on a horse and connect to the earth and the ground and and breathe, and then, but doesn't seem like some people need to. I mean, we're going to find in the next 20 years more of the effects of this digital life.
Yeah.
I don't know that we've seen the effects completely. Now we're getting sort of tastes of it. I have a friend that's got a son. He spends a lot of his time. He spends all of his time, really, let's face it, on screens, mostly on his phone, watching YouTube.
Right.
And I don't know that he has a happy life. Now, that's just my independent study of one person. But he also, went to high school during COVID. School was on a screen.
Right.
Yep. We can come. I've got some more thoughts on that, but we've got a lot to try and get through with you while we've got you. So, Kathleen, back to you.
So many people have tried meditating and find it difficult because they become so easily distracted. Number one, can everybody learn to do this? And also, how do you know if you're meditating correctly?
I love that question because I've had so many people come to me with that very question. Number one, there's not a way to do it wrong.
Oh.
There's just no way to do it wrong.
That's
no way
good
to
to
do it.
know.
You just put the seat of your pants in the seat of your chair. And there are many different, there's many different, I mentioned some in the beginning, meditation methods. A lot of people think they fail because their mind starts to intrude on them and run the grocery list or run the task list. And they try to shut their mind off, and you can never shut your mind off. So to meditate doesn't mean to shut your mind off. Let's first, we can start with that. But you can transcend your mind. So mind can be over here talking to you. We can be multidimensionally aware. I'm sure if you're driving a car, you can be partly on automatic pilot to a degree, and you can be thinking about where you're going and your directions and how you're going to get there. And now you can even look at your map to a degree, and you can think of a few things at once. So with meditating, don't be concerned if your mind is going, that's fine. I think it's easier if you do a mantra meditation. I find those, and what that means is you take a word that you like or has an energy field. So people that practice yoga will know the word Om.
Okay.
I like the word hue that comes from the Sufi tradition. Yakking is a practice that uses hue. The Aramaic Christians use hue, Allah hue. And so I love that word hue. It has an energy with it. And so I'll chant inwardly the word hue. And what that does is it gives my mind something to do with itself. And at the same time, it brings a beautiful energy field with it that you can then ride on.
Mhm.
As if you as if you have like a floating raft or something, and you put it in a river, a gentle river, and you just gently float on that. There's an energy field that comes with a lot of these mantras. Hue is a very high energy field, and it also gives your mind. And so what we do is you chant the hue. You can use any word you like. I wanted to contemplate and spend some months on loving. And I don't mean romantic love. I mean the kind of love where you wish for the well-being of yourself and others, where you're kind and compassionate and empathetic and caring and that kind of loving. Oh, I'm just getting goosebumps. And I decided I was really going to focus on that. So I just used the word love as a mantra. I just went back to that. Now, when my mind gets quiet, then I just listen. I don't chant anymore, and I just listen. And then if my mind starts telling me about the grocery list and where I've got to go next and get up, you're spending too much, whatever it does, I go back to the word, whatever word you choose.
So when you say hue, is it like you say hue and you just that's what it is, right?
That's beautiful. I love the way you just
Oh,
chanted that.
thank you. All right. And then you can do it inwardly, so without saying it out loud, or saying it out loud and see where it takes you, where your mind takes
And
you.
oh, well, it'll go beyond your mind.
Right. Okay.
So we're talking about when the hue will transcend your mind and emotions because it's a sound, they say, that is in a sense, the matrix of all creation, where formlessness comes into form. That's all. We're all created out of vibration, right? We're all created out of sound, a vibrational frequency, a vibrational field. So that sound of hue is a vibrational field, right where formlessness comes into form. That's way beyond our minds.
Mm-hmm.
It moves us into source and soul and spirit. And that's why we want to use one of the highest vibrational frequency words. And love is one, the way I feel that word. Hue is one. Om is one. I think hue is a little higher, goes a little higher than om in my experience. So states of consciousness, we have our physical body, we have our mind, we have our emotions, what we feel, we have our imagination, we have our subconscious, unconscious. And then there's, in metaphysical terms, they call it the great mirror or the void. It's can be like a bridge and then up into the spiritual realms. That's into the soul and the spirit. The meditation that I suggest and that I've been practicing for 50 years now is a transcendent meditation that takes you out of your mind, transcending the physical mind, emotions, imagination, subconscious, unconscious, into the spiritual realms. And there is our eternality exists there. This used to all be very secret. This was secret. This was never spoken of for thousands of years. And now it's so exciting that this information from the East started to come to the West, right? A turn of the century, late 1800s, with some great teachers. Sufi teacher Hazrat Inayat Khan came here, some of the Theosophists, esoteric Christianity, and this ancient wisdom started, Yogananda started to be made known for some of otherwise it was just in these small little enclaves of students of these great teachers, these great avatars that have traveled those inner worlds. They know the terrain and they know how to get there.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah. The state of flow. How close is that to the sort of nirvana you're talking about? And I'll give you personal experience. In my 30s and 40s, which was quite a long time ago, I did a lot of marathon running. So I was running, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50 miles a week when I was training for ultra marathons. And I'd read about the runner's high, and I experienced it a few times. I was living near the coast in South Africa at the time. A couple of mornings I'd be running as the sun was coming up over the ocean, and just could feel no pain, no strain, no tiredness, this most unbelievable state of euphoria. It didn't last long, it was a few minutes. And the only time I've ever experienced anything close to that, I've also been a horse rider most of my life, it was on the back of a horse
Mm.
when everything worked, having a nice canter or whatever, or just doing some exercises. So those are two states. Is that sort of what you believe you can achieve through meditation, or is it something totally different?
I don't know the level of in consciousness that you went to or achieved, but the bigger answer is yes. Yes. I actually had experience running one time. I was running up a hill in the desert, and all of a sudden I ran up this hill, and all of a sudden I knew I was in my soul. My soul came to meet me, and I was chanting the hue at the same time.
Great.
So I was running and chanting. So meditation doesn't necessarily have to be sitting in a chair.
Right.
It sounds to me like you reached a very high state of consciousness.
Well,
Through
I'm getting your goosebumps now just talking about it and listening to you, because I'm reliving that very one round down by the seas. Wow, thank you for that. Switching gears a little, because I'm trying to get as much of your.
I'd love to say one thing about that.
Sure.
Sure.
So what you said was it only lasted a few minutes. So here's the great challenge with a meditation or a spiritual practice, is to let that time last longer and longer and longer. So that's where it takes practice. That's where a daily routine, a daily program, a daily run, it's not that you'll reach there every single time. Eventually, you'll get there where you will reach that every single time. And then once you do that, then you invite that presence and yourself in that presence to stay with you longer, and you try to hold it longer and longer and longer, until pretty soon you are the multidimensional being. It's not just a multidimensional thought. You are that multidimensional being, living a life, an everyday life, and awake to spirit, both at the same time.
Wow, thank you. So I want to question you quickly. We're trying to get as much of your wisdom as possible. You've done the study and you made the documentary on the 6 major world religions. Did you find some common elements that tie all those together, or are they all pretty disparate?
In the depth of every faith tradition that I went exploring about and documenting in this movie I made, the deepest part of every single faith was love. And the everyday ordinary person practicing their faith was that they mostly were born into was a God of love, a being of love, an experience of love. Or even beyond the being, when you get really esoteric into some of the faiths, again, it comes back to a consciousness, an all-pervading consciousness that we are one with. We just maybe forgot about it. And that's where we started in this conversation.
Right.
Is what takes us out of that, and are people more taken out of that awareness and that consciousness than ever before? So it's our job, if we choose to do this great adventure, to come back into that awareness of where we came from, what are we one with, and what the consciousness is that breathes us.
Okay. Kathleen, back to you.
Well, I'm actually curious, is the concept of angels also something that was common or is common to the major religions?
the religions, the Muslims call the religions of the book. So the Judeo-Christian, Islamic religions all have a pantheon of angels, of spiritual beings
Mhm.
that live next to us. Also, I spent some time with Lakota people, Sioux people, and they have spiritual beings, many, many spirits, which they call spirits, but you could call angels.
Mhm.
And I think in Hinduism, many of their spiritual, and in Buddhism, come to think of it, and in Buddhism, they have many gods, but we might call them spiritual. They have an energy. We could also call them angelic presences. And then you get into, so yes, every tradition that I've studied has spiritual beings, master beings, avatars that don't have a physical body that we can call angelic beings
Guardians
or guardians or master or light beings. And, I think they live next to us. I think they live next to us and are our invisible companions until you develop a relationship with them, and you just always want to ask that they're the most benevolent. They come from the goodness of existence, and you can feel them walking with you. And the most poignant experience, I was in a car accident. A friend of mine was driving and he slid. Here in Colorado, they don't put salt down on the roads when it snows, but they put gravel, little tiny pea gravel, and it's slippery. And he was driving the speed limit, but it was too fast, and it was in a canyon. And all of a sudden I see a canyon wall and we're going over, and he flipped. But as he was flipping, I remember I just called on, the highest beings come. And the car flipped over. It was all smashed. The roof was pushed in. There was glass everywhere, and we were both fine. And I was hanging by the seatbelt upside down, laughing my head off. It struck me. And my friend crawls out of the car, and then he comes back and he goes, I know this is funny to you, and I'm glad we're all okay, but you need to get out of the car. It could burst into flames. But it was an invisible presence. It was an angelic being. It was a guardian that I knew. I mean, I could just, as I saw that cliff and we were going up on it, I felt that presence.
Wow.
And that's what I felt, the joy of it. That's why I was laughing. I wasn't laughing that we smashed the car and we're upside down. I was laughing for the joy of that being that came present. And I was so grateful to that being that just somehow held us in some kind of protection.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, it is amazing. So, oh my gosh, Catherine, if you've studied meditation as we just talked about for over 50 years with several great spiritual teachers, if you could distill a few of their teachings for our audience, what would be some of the major highlights that you've learned?
You can't meditate wrong.
Great.
You need to sit in stillness and listen. That there's a great presence that is our friend and is available to us, and that we are that as well as it being us. We're just a little piece of it, but we are a piece of it. We are a spark of the divine. And to the greatest journey, the greatest adventure there is awakening to that. And getting strong enough that the hurdles and the distractions and the disappointments and the rejections and the hard things of life that every life has, just teaches us to transcend those things. And that we learn that every one of those hardships was meant to teach us something. It was our baptism and our lesson. And in knowing what those lessons are, then we move back into joy and don't feel the victim of our lives or the victim of strange circumstances or accidents. We know there aren't any.
Right.
Wow.
All about synchronicity. No
Yeah,
such thing as a coincidence, right? Go ahead, Peter.
No, there's a couple other things that got to ask you, but we're getting short of time. So tell us about the programs you offer. Tell our audience, should I say, about the programs you offer, Catherine.
So just like you had said earlier, people sometimes really struggle with meditation. So, and a lot of people came to me, how do you meditate? And they were all kind of hung up on the same thing, which was, I can't sit still that long. My mind runs. And I thought, I don't think they're asking me how to meditate per se. I think they want to meditate because they think that's going to get them to the connection to their soul and spirit, to their source. And yes, it will. And there are other spiritual practices that will too. We talked about your running, for example. So what I did was I put together 5 recordings of spiritual practice. One is an invocation, just to align yourself with your soul and your spirit and invite it in. One is a teaching from one of the great spiritual masters throughout history. And I just love looking at their teachings and reading and studying. And then I pulled out some of their teachings. And then an affirmation to master your mind and emotions, to keep your mind on track, on a higher track, the highest track. And then a meditation, and then a chant. And I recorded all these 5 spiritual practices per day, and it only takes 5 to 7 minutes.
Wow.
So we can go deep in a short amount of time. We don't need a big, long, I know some meditation teachers say 20 minutes, and that's hard for some people, especially if you have children and they're little children. How do you even get 5 minutes?
Right.
But if you can do 5 minutes and just while you're in the bathroom or somewhere and tune in, you'll be able to expand that for yourself longer and longer and hold that connection with spirit longer and longer till we become that integrated being, a spiritual being and a physical being, living our lives in everyday life. So I have this subscription program. You can subscribe to it. You can also go to my website, soulandspirit.net, and I have a quote from one of those spiritual masters I talked about, and I would send them to you every day. So you'd get one every day. That's free. The other that I talked about is subscription. My movie's on there. You can watch the movie for free. I have a Nada Yoga little mini class. That's all. These are complimentary. So yes, if you go to my website, Soul and Spirit.
A lot of resources. Well,
Yes.
you've answered how we can contact you, how people can contact you. That normally we ask you before the. I've got a burning question that I ask all our expert guests, which I've got it. I know we're over time, but I've got to throw it in. Kathleen and I are both optimistic and positive, and we've both been through enough in our life to agree with you that there's no accidents. All these things happen for a purpose, right? But many of the people we talk to, not guests, but through the course of doing the show and just in everyday life, many people, and obviously we're talking from a North American perspective, are negative. It was concern about the election, which way it would go, war in Ukraine, war in the Middle East, inflation up here in Canada, a lot of dissatisfaction with all sorts of things, immigrant, whatever. So many people are carrying this huge bundle of negativity around and wondering what's going to happen. What would you suggest that our audience who are feeling like that start doing today or tomorrow to get back to becoming positive and getting in touch with their basic core source and spirituality? What's one step?
Well, the first step I would say is ask, is it mine or somebody else's? I don't know. I know you get that. I mean,
I get it. Oh, I get it.
I mean, so to explain it, somebody might go, what in the world does that mean? A lot of the negativity that's swirling around these days, we can just pick up on it.
Oh, yeah.
If And then it can somehow, I don't even know what the word is, but kind of permeate us in a way. And it's
Oh,
not
sure.
even ours.
No.
It was somebody we walked by, or it was somebody complaining about something, and then you walk away and in your head, you're finding complaints. I think this is a big part of it. So
Mhm.
you first key is it mine or somebody else's? And then listen. And your consciousness will tell you. It'll tell you, it'll go, oh, no, I picked up that lady behind me in the grocery store was really nervous and angry and in a hurry and pushing, and she wanted to go faster. And I walked out of there with that.
Mm.
So, if you find that for yourself, shake it off.
That's right.
Shake,
That's right.
shake it off. Go, that wasn't mine. And then go through your consciousness. What else isn't mine that have I picked up from others?
Right.
And then you can go, okay, now what's mine? Where am I feeling defeated? Where am I disappointed? Where am I scared? Where am I? And then whatever tools you have, and there's so many psychological tools, I just do what I do. It's so easy. And I just go, get off. Just get off.
Right.
If I starting running doubts, that's, and I think we all have the habit of what we do mentally and emotionally. Mine happens to be doubts. I doubt things. And I know my brand of that. It's just part of what my consciousness. So if I start running doubts, I just go, oh, there they are again. Get off. Get off.
Very good. Very good.
Excellent.
Excellent advice. Thank you very much. So that's, I think I've got to say thank you so much, Catherine. I really enjoyed this one. And thanks to our audience for watching. The last quick one from me. Next week, we will have another very interesting lady called Jenny Powers coming on the show. And as you see, we have this great lineup of guests. So if you're watching this for the first time, don't miss out on who's coming on. Just hop onto our website, theyackingshow.com, sign up for our newsletter. We only send you one email a week, but then you'll be in the picture of who's coming onto the show. Once again, thanks, Catherine, and back to Kathleen.
Yes, once again, thank you very much, Catherine, for being on the show. And thank you also very much for tuning in once again. And if anyone is interested in being a guest on our show, we invite you to visit us at theyakkingshow.com. All you need to do is click on the contacts tab and fill out a short application form, and we'd love to hear from you. So until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.